this could very easily become some rustly ASMR type video because I refuse to remove my coat. It has been... I'm not allowed to say that word on the internet, but bucketing it down with rain. It looks set to start again any second now, and there is a hole in my shoe, and I've spent 2 days with wet socks. And some people might think, Charlie, why don't you just change your shoes? And that's because I only own one pair of shoes. The trainers. I don't see the point in owning more than one pair of trainers. I might have been through this before. You know, I'm currently having to wear second-hand trousers because I only had one pair of trousers and they tore, and it's a whole thing. This is the problem of being a cheapskate / poor / technically penniless. Anyway, it has been another extensively long time since we spoke. It has been an extended break, all of those things. In fact, I couldn't remember the day that I last recorded. I'm sorry about it. I know, once again, that I still haven't done that tag that Emma of Emma Rosen Books tagged me in, or that Dane tagged me in, same tag, and I haven't done it. And I know it's there to do, but it just hasn't happened yet. And I think about it every day, I think about writing down the questions, and then it doesn't happen. So what have you all been up to whilst I've been off on me jollies? There wasn't anything jolly happening, mostly work. I had the majority of the last fortnight off, as in I had 10 days off. And you'd think I would have recorded in that time, but I didn't. I started going for walks along the canal, and I don't know what inspired me. I just woke up on the Tuesday morning after I'd finished here on the Monday, and on the Monday I'd got here early and I thought, well, I'm here too early, I'm going for a walk, and I went for a walk. And then when I woke up at 7:30 on Tuesday, again I thought, while I'm awake, I wouldn't usually get up for another 2 hours, so I'm going for a walk. And that consistently happened until today, because hole in shoe, rain, slippy floor because my shoe no longer has any sort of traction on the sort of pavement they've got around here, so I slip everywhere. And yes, I'm aware, Charlie, just go out and buy some new shoes. It's not that big a deal. I know. Anyway. I'm now here talking to you. So yeah, we did walks along the canal, and I thought that this might inspire some sort of Charles Dickens type creativity, but it didn't. In fact, all it lent itself to was me arriving home, and because we're lambing now, there aren't many people at home, and I haven't been helping with the lambs. I'm a terrible son, a terrible farmer's child. We all know this. It's been well documented throughout my nearly 27 years of life, that I am not the ideal son for a farmer. But I've been getting home, having a shower, making breakfast, and then just lounging around the house reading. It's been silent, it's been bliss, but the books that I read weren't necessarily things that I would recommend. I will talk about that in another video because it surprised me that I wouldn't recommend them. But we'll talk about that another day. In fact, if you watched my cozy reading night vlog, you can actually guess exactly which books I'm talking about. I did, however, rewrite and finish 2 chapters of the children's book, and I'd put that aside a few months ago in November, and I did that with all my writing. I hadn't really written from November until February, March time properly, for no reason, just that I was incredibly busy in December, and then when January came along I was just reading all the time. So I hadn't really looked at the children's book in a long time. I was trying to figure out this scene and just work out where things were going to go. And I know I mentioned in my last video that or the video before, I mentioned at some point that I don't tend to work well with scenes with many characters. And the children's book happens to have quite a few characters. And so I'm over here trying to figure my way through it, and then I felt as though something just clicked, and it was kind of a cop-out, but just to get me through this draft, I didn't mind so much. And this was unconsciousness. And maybe I've done this previously when I needed to just get rid of a character for a bit of time, just knock him out. But it got me through that chapter, and then I wrote another one, so let's not question it right now. I also planted some things that will probably all die because I have no idea what gardening is. In fact, whilst I wrote Our Doris, it's just the reason that book is about a garden safari is not because I know anything about gardening, and any gardening vernacular in there is taken from the Reader's Digest Gardener's Year. As in, I used that book for research. I didn't just pull passages out, but, you know, just to air that, to let you know that happened. But yeah, it's taken me 7 minutes to relate to you probably the most boring story you've heard all week. I got to look after my nephew one day. That was an experience since he doesn't live around these parts, and so it was a quick fly-in visit for his Easter holidays. And it's always strange to see how a child's mind develops and question whether your mind was like that when you were that age. I swear he is a feral child, and I've been through this before. I think there is something in farmers' children, myself excluded from this, that turns them a bit wild. They have the freedom of fields, and so when it comes to roads and cars and paths for walks, they don't really like that. They prefer to be able to go off the beaten track and create their own paths. This is me speaking from experience of when my nephew decided he wanted to climb a very precarious hill and only stopped because, 1, he was tired, and 2, because I told him we had to stick to the public path, which has now meant that my nephew apparently hates paths. But I think for a 5-year-old to hate paths, that's probably okay. There are worse things that he could be hating, but we'll stick with paths if that's where he wants to go. Honestly, it's not been a very productive, fun, enterprising time at all. I'm now a member of the Society of Authors, but I can't remember whether I told you about that, but I've been trying to write more poetry, but I've talked about that a lot. It's just, I feel like I should come to you with some big thing like, oh, I've been off living. I disappeared to Montreal for 3 weeks with a synagogue. But that didn't happen. The rain has now appeared. I'm hoping that that is punctuating my video quite well. I'm trying to project my voice now, just so you can hear me. But let's maybe listen to the rain and see if it's telling us anything. I think maybe it's telling us that it's wet outside. So hopefully the rain has quietened down a bit so that I can say that I actually did go to my friend's book launch for her poetry collection Wings, Planes and Weather Vanes. Did I mention it was by Joy Winkler? Because it is. And it was a wonderful night as a sort of precursor to an open mic night that she's going to be beginning at the Button Warehouse in Macclesfield. I don't know. I feel like nowadays I feel happier when I see my friends and acquaintances releasing work than I do about releasing my own. There's still something quite thrilling and making something that makes you feel happy for a person in seeing all of their hard work pay off. The place was packed and there was a captive audience, and I think that it was just the perfect kind of night and way to launch a poetry collection. Poetry, as we know, is quite a difficult sell nowadays, and yeah, that happened. And then I went to an evening of poetry earlier this week in which the poet Mark Rowlands, also known as Mark the Poet, and a few other poets were all there trying to raise money for Step Up for Care Workers. And I got to hear some amazing poetry, some spoken word stuff. I know poetry's all supposed to be spoken word, but you know what I mean, where people are really just working on the beats and thinking about the way stuff sounds. And obviously then you're appealing to me because I like the way that people, when they play with language. So I was incredibly enthusiastic about some of that. But yeah, they're about the only two things that I've done that exist outside of my normal everyday routine. Anyway, I do think I'm going to leave it there because as I've talked, I've slowly just driven myself into the doldrums again, which is no place for me. It's one of those things where you just spend your time questioning loneliness and whether you are truly a boring person, whether you're just waiting for life to slowly appear, or whether you're just going to eventually wither and die having learnt and achieved nothing in life. But I could also blame the rain for that. Grey skies, grey ground, grey goose. Right. Please do tell me what you're doing. Tell me what you've been up to, what you've been reading, what you've been writing, how you're feeling, what have you been getting on with. Have you got any projects you're working on? Has anything made you proud this week? Are you feeling happy at all? Thriving? Have you had some good news? Let me know, because I would like to live my life vicariously through others. I hope that you got something from this video, even if it was only something to watch whilst you're on the toilet. And until next time, that is all.